The Shooting Range. In this episode, Pages of History, why did Doras go back to inline engines? Map Guide, Down the Rocky Paths of Karelia. And Metal Beasts, the British Banana Jet. In this episode, we're going to tell you more about the new things introduced in the Hot Tracks update. Please welcome the ultimate record holder for the highest payload among carrier-based aircraft in War Thunder, the current best of the best among British bombers with a BR of 9.3, the Blackburn Buccaneer S.2. The Korean War proved that the good old Sea Fury and Firefly attack aircraft could not properly handle the tasks anymore. The Navy needed a new dedicated plane, one capable of taking off from a deck, suppressing enemy AA defense on ultra-low altitudes, and carrying out its mission. This machine is propelled by two turbojet engines installed at the root of the wing. Self-sealing fuel tanks are found in the center of the fuselage, while the nose cone hides a radar system. The choice of suspended armament is pretty wide. Bombs with calibers of 500 and 1,000 pounds, rockets, and guided air-to-air and air-to-surface missiles. Much as many other attack aircraft, the Buccaneer is not meant for pure air battles. There are no guns on it, and with only a couple of AIM-9B missiles, it cannot properly defend itself against enemy fighters. So, instead, we'll tell you how it feels to fly it in mixed battles. And boy, it feels so much better here. The enormous payload capabilities that even World War II bombers would envy, together with a high-speed and ballistic computer for bomb sites, make the Buccaneer a truly fearsome attack aircraft on the battlefield. With no upgrades, you can choose 28 500-pound bombs. It's a small caliber, so we recommend you drop 2 or 3 for each target. Your chances of hitting, say, a moving tank increase dramatically, while the number of bombs you're carrying is still enough to send half of the enemy team to the hangar. Once you research the 1,000-pound bombs, you may start dropping a single bomb for each target. Remember, though, the last 4 bombs are hidden in the bomb hatch and cannot be dropped while nose-diving. Now, what changes the Buccaneer completely is the air-to-surface missiles. The 4 famous American AGM-12B bullpup missiles will make dealing with enemy SPAA so much easier. Having annihilated enemy AA defenses, this British attack aircraft will fly around sending some very nasty gifts to enemy tankers. We've got a few more hints for you as well. Don't forget to use your air brakes when you perform an attack nosediving. The control surfaces become much stiffer at high speed, so you might not get the chance to steer up from the ground. Also, if you spot enemy fighters in the air, simply turn round and run, no matter how cool your Buccaneer seems to be. With your powerful engines, you'll be able to lose most of possible chasers. It's no secret that the nations entered the Second World War mostly flying the New Wave fighters that used 12-cylinder liquid-cooled engines. Most major players had them. The British had their Spitfire, the Americans had the P-40, the Germans had the Me-109 series, the Italians the Folgore. There were also the French MS-406 and D-520, the Soviet Yak, LAGG, and MiG. Even the Japanese Ki-61 used this type of engine. Despite that, practically all of them switched to radial engines towards the end of the war, since they turned out to be more reliable, durable, and powerful. So why did German engineers who built the Focke-Wulf 190 with a radial engine at first go back to an inline engine for the Dora? First, radial engines have always been associated with aircraft because it's the most efficient use for them. There were some tanks with them, of course, but it usually was an extreme last resort type of measure that engineers would avoid when they could. Germany, however, was banned from developing any kind of aircraft engines after World War I. So engineers focused their work on liquid-cooled inline engines instead, and achieved significant progress. To cover the efforts, they were claimed to be meant for ships, locomotives, or civilian heavy machines, and even successfully used as such in reality. Still, Germany wasn't that good with radial engines, so the 14-cylinder BMW 801 installed on the Focke-Wulf 190 was far from the best for its class. As for an 18-cylinder radial engine, well, Germany never built a single flying prototype with it during the war. There's a second reason: complexity. As a rule of thumb, the radial engine has fewer parts, but those parts are more complex and harder to make since they require more expensive and advanced materials. Making an inline engine requires a lot of casting, pressing, and forging, and those are pretty simple processes. Radial engines, however, require an enormous amount of turning, milling, drilling, and grinding. You might think, well, what's so hard about it? Well, try to do the finning for at least one cylinder using a manual control turning lathe. And only a real master could create a crankcase for an aircraft radial engine, and you only have so many of them during the war. The last, and by no means the least reason, required some context. You see, a radial engine requires a lot of bearings. If you've been watching us a year ago, you might remember a story we told you in episode 132 about an attack on a German ball-bearing plant in Schweinfurt. The Americans knew what they were doing. Once they received an opportunity, they launched a series of bomb raids deep into Germany to strip them of any bearings they could make. It was this bearing scarcity that made the BMW plants cut down on their 14-cylinder radial engine production and stop the development of new models completely. Planes like the Henschel 129 even had to use captured French engines, outdated and underpowered. They couldn't use those on fighters, though, since they simply wouldn't make it. All of that meant going back to inline engines and double down on producing extremely expensive, underdeveloped, and even outright dangerous turbojet models. Models that no other nation in the world would use in real combat back then. But yeah, you guessed it. That's a story for another time. In this episode, we'll be reviewing the very first Ground Forces map that came to the game as early as in 2013. Please welcome a terrain full of rocky narrow paths and dangerous gorges, Karelia. Let's start with the South Team. The most important part of the map is the central B point that gives a high ground. If you take it, you usually get an opportunity to control most of the map. The central area has several approaches. If your tank is quick or you aren't afraid of getting shot at, you can take the shortest path. Choose the eastern respawn point and go along the canyon. You'll be to the east of point B, at the same time with the enemy getting an opportunity to slow them or block them completely. If there are no enemies to be seen, well, maybe they're stuck in a shootout with your allies next to the canyon. In this case, you can climb the balcony-like rocky brow nearby to get an amazing view on the enemy team's positions. Now, the alternative route is much safer. Take the narrow path starting around square F5 if you need to avoid your enemy's sights or simply want to be sure you'll get there. Keep in mind, though, it might take a lot of time, perhaps enough for your allies to have taken the positions already. The third way to point B lies from the western spawn point. No matter how sweet a point C looks, you'd better leave it for your slower allies to climb the mountain faster. This way, you might slip through the dangerous area before your enemies lay their sights on it. Once you climb it, get to a position to the left of the central point. It's quite a comfortable place to control both the lower area between points A and C and the two climbs to the central hill area. Don't forget about the drive to the gorge. This narrow corridor leads very close to the enemy spawn point. No need to get excited though. Even two tanks will find it hard to pass each other here. And if there are more, well, it's a deadly traffic jam for everyone. You'd want to stay at the entrance and block the enemy's way. Now, we still have the home point C. The capture itself is unremarkable. But what do you do next? You can risk and climb the central area. Alternatively, you can push for the enemy home point while closely watching your left. Finally, map line 1. If you follow the road, you can quickly get to the flank of point A and cut it off from the respawn point. But remember, there's a very high chance of encountering the enemy here. Now, the North team. The positions are basically mirrored, so there isn't much we can add to that. Same 3 routes to the central point, 2 from the eastern spawn point, a short and safe one, and 1 from the western spawn point that goes through home point A. If you take the shortest route to the position east of point B, you'll get there at the same time with the enemy, leaving them and your skill one-on-one. If you take the safer route, pay attention to the position behind the rock once you get close to the central point. Here, you'll be able to shoot from cover, only showing your turret to the enemy. As for reaching the central high area from the western spawn point, you need to mirror the south team's strategy. Ignore capturing the home point, leave it for your allies. Once you climb all the way up, you can either capture point B or control the lower areas. Again, use the same strategy in the gorge. Occupy the position next to the cliff to get easy access to a part of the path and an even easier way to hit the sides of enemy armor. If you do decide to capture the home point, head towards point C under the side of the mountain. Or if your tank has good elevation angles, climb a little higher and take a position next to the central approach to point B. The final useful position for today is found in squares D1 and E1 near the hill. Here, you get a nice view on both climbs to the central area and exits from point C. As a bonus, you can leave the position and head toward the bypass to snipe an unaware enemy. Well, it looks like that's everything we wanted to share with you about this map. Good luck in battle. Now it's time that we answered some of the questions you asked us in the comments. The first question was sent by a player called Zoeboy. What's the maximum daily login reward you can get? At which day does it end? Hi there. For your daily logins, you can get a whole bunch of different items, including plain old silver lions, wages, boosters, golden lions, or even premium vehicles. As for the second part of your question, the rewards never end. Fez Green writes, "Next time, First Jets Triathlon, please." Hi Fez. Why not? We will certainly have a triathlon among the earliest jets. The one true Mario asks, as I'm almost done researching the AD-ATS and Tunguska, how or where do I set the lock on to SAM missiles? Ciao, Mario. After you achieve target lock with your radar, the site will follow it automatically. If you don't move it with your mouse, of course. You can lock onto a target using the multifunctional menu or by simply pressing Y13. Another question comes from Brusola Inaraya. How can I know what engine is number 1, 2, 3, and 4 when in a bomber? Hello there. The engines are numbered left to right when you look at the plane from the tail, such as the pilot's view, but never facing the plane. Then there is a question sent by Ilarian King. Does my aircraft get faster and lighter over time by consuming fuel and wasting ammo? Hello, Ilarian. Oh, yes, it does. That's why it's so important to choose the right amount of fuel to get that perfect balance between flight duration and performance. And the last comment for today was written by Private Plattyboy Platty. Slowest plane versus fastest ground tank vehicle. When? Hi there. How about right now? We'll have the Japanese Type 93 SPAA for the ground vehicle, and the Soviet Po-2 will do for the aircraft. Getting ready for takeoff? And go. The truck dashes ahead and gains the lead. 90 kph. 100. The Japanese truck is still ahead, but here it reaches its maximum speed of 124 kph, giving an opportunity for the Po-2 to outspeed it. Well, once again, that's it for today. You've been watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment, and the next episode will premiere the following Sunday at 4 p.m. GMT or noon Eastern Time. Tell us about your favorite map in the game. Subscribe, oh please do, and click the bell, it makes a lovely sound. If you don't want to miss our next videos, don't forget to leave a like, share your thoughts and comments, and, you guessed it, I'll see you in a week.